Hello everybody, welcome to another watercolor tutorial. We're going to be painting a mountainscape today, and originally I was going to title this video like ultra easy mountain painting because it was going to be like a very quick tutorial, and naturally I have to complicate everything. So we are going to be painting a slightly more advanced, but I would still consider this beginner watercolor. So it's gonna look like there's gonna be 3 layers of mountains, and we'll see how it evolves from there because my plans always change slightly. So for your first layer, you're going to take green watercolor that's pretty watered down, and you can pencil in your mountain, or you can be bold like me and hope for the best. And we're going to just start off with a peak on the top left, and actually you can just paint your mountains however you'd like, but I'm doing kind of a 2-peak situation over here. Reminds me of the Twin Peaks in Whistler, BC, if you've ever been skiing there or snowboarding. So there we go, we're just extending that, and then we want to water down the bottom of the mountain enough so that it kind of fades into the white as much as we can. So that's good enough for me. Now, before this dries completely, I'm going to start adding some value, some darker features to it to make it look a little bit more realistic and less completely beginner. And so I'm taking my original color, perhaps adding a little bit of black or just something to darken it a little bit. And my sun is going to be coming from this side, so I'm just creating some shadows on the left grooves of my mountain, and I'm just extending them outwards like that. Now, what I don't like, there was clearly too much water here, so it's bleeding over. So I'm picking up that paint on the right side of the mountain, and I'm trying to make the right side nice and bright on both peaks. And you can make the bright part kind of zigzaggy almost if you want to, but we want to prevent the bleeding. Like usually on cotton paper, that bleeding creates a really cool effect, but not when we want nice sharp and crisp edges for our mountains. So just keep picking up that pigment until you're satisfied. And that's already starting to look pretty great. So we're gonna let that completely dry before we move on to the next layer of our mountains. Okay, so that's kind of dry, I think. So for the second layer, we're going to, you can either pick up a darker green or just add more pigment and less water to your green to intensify it just slightly so it's darker than our first layer. And again, you can create your peaks however you want, but what you want to do is overlap your mountain by roughly 1/3, I would say. And so I think I'll have kind of like a false peak there. And I'll have a little bit of overlap like this, and then we are going to blend that out just like we did with the first one, because we don't want a harsh ending or harsh bottom to our mountain. So just what I'm doing is watering, like just picking up water on my paintbrush and dragging that pigment out until it's pretty close to the white. So I'm satisfied with that. And just like with our first one, with our first layer, we're going to do that same thing where we add pigment to just the one side. So the left side, because my light source is coming from the right. And I'm doing this while it's still wet, and you want to apply these features while your mountain is still wet, so it kind of blends all together. Not together, but just if you did it, if it was dry, then it would create these really harsh features and harsh lines, and it wouldn't look as realistic. And just like that first one, I have to pick up some pigment because it is bleeding onto my right side where the sun is supposed to be. So a lot of my mountain features, especially when I do these harsher edges, they're inspired by the Dolomite Mountains, which are located in Italy. They're the base of the Alps, or the start of the Alps, I like to think of them. And they have these really, really rough and raggedy, jagged cliff faces, I guess. Just type in Dolomites into the internet and you'll see what I mean. They're just so dramatic and gorgeous, and that is what I think of often when I paint mountains. So I'm happy with this second layer, and just like the first one, we're gonna let it dry before moving on to our third and final layer. Okay, so my second layer is dry. I'm grabbing even more pigmented green. You can even add some black to darken it if you wish. And, whoops. So we're gonna start with our third layer, and one tip I guess that I want to mention before I paint this third layer is always start your third layer at least on the same level, if not above that line that's the ending of your previous mountain, unless of course you painted it so seamlessly that it just completely blends in with the white. But you can see a very distinct line here, and if I started my mountain here and started painting like this, then you would see that that gap between the end of my second mountain and the start of my third one. So just keep that in mind when you're painting that. So with our third mountain, I'm gonna have a peak here, maybe a little one there, and I'm gonna drop right down. Maybe starting another one there. So just like the first two layers, I'm watering down my paintbrush and I'm blending out that color. Except this time I'm gonna blend it out all the way to the end of my piece of paper. So that there isn't that white gap that we saw in the first two layers of our mountains. again, while it's still wet, we want to apply our shadow features. One more time, just reminding you that our light source is coming from the right. So I am making sure that my shadows are on the left. Okay. There's a lot of dipping your paintbrush in and out of water and onto a paper towel. Like I always have a paper towel handy just to dab off the excess water that collects on your brush. Now my third layer is not as dark as I would like it to be, or at least the shadows aren't, so I'm just going over, like I added a little tiny bit of black and I'm just going over them. Once again, did not take off enough there. Just going over it so that it doesn't spread strangely. Perfect. So you can either leave it at that, or you're welcome to add some pine trees just at the base of our mountains here, but I'm going to keep this simple as just a mountain painting. So that is basically it. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, check out my other videos, hit like on this one, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.